On everyone, Hux21 here, back with another Splinterlands video. So we are here on the SplinterGuide site. If you haven't caught my last few videos, this is a site created by Brave Tofu and myself. We're building this out slowly but surely. We got some new stuff popping up on here every single day. You might notice a new tab down here, the market tab. I'll make a video on this in the future, but you can come check it out now. And today I'm going to use this site. So my next two videos are going to be a bit of a series using our monster rating system. And what I'm going to do is I went through the system, I looked at the numbers our algorithm spit out, and I found 7 of the most overrated and 7 of the most underrated cards, in my opinion, based on our algorithm. So what makes this site and rating system really, really cool is that each player, right, is going to have a different interaction with each specific card, depending on your play style, depending on what splinters you like to run. You're going to have a very different opinion on specific cards than I might. So what the algorithm tries to do is take all of that into context, right? But with that said, that means my personal opinions are going to differ from the algorithm a bit. And that doesn't mean that the algorithm's wrong or that I'm wrong. It just means that, in my opinion, these cards give me more utility than maybe it's showing up in this algorithm. It could be because of my playstyle. It could be because of the deck I run. It could be because I'm underrating other cards potentially. All of that could be a factor. But nevertheless, my opinions are going to differ from the ones that get put out. So we're going to talk about today the top 7 most, in my opinion, underrated cards by the algorithm. So we're going to go through from 7 to 1, with 1 being the card I think is the most underrated on the entire list. So we're going to get into it, but before we do, just a reminder, I am Hux21 and I cover Splinterlands here on the channel. We are headed towards our goal of 2,000 subscribers, so if you could take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. We will do our next big giveaway once we hit that number, so slowly but surely we're moving towards there. Come join the fun. Okay, let's get into it. Coming in at number 7, we're gonna filter this real quick. Coming in at a 4.4, the Evangelist. I always struggle to say that name, so I'll probably struggle to say it a little bit. Evangelist. There we go. Okay, so this is a card I've always really liked. We're opening a new tab, but comes in at a 4.4. And you look at some of the cards around it, and I just find a lot more utility in the Evangelist than a lot of these other cards. The Evangelist is a card I use a ton. We're going to talk about it right here. So it has a lot of really useful abilities, specifically with the way I play life. So one of the ways I play life, mainly, one of the big ways, and I think a lot of people play it this way, is no magic, right? If I know there's only melee, only ranged, this is a fantastic card, right? 1, it's range, so you can play it. 2, it gives the Inspire, so that helps the melee cards you're inevitably going to have to bring. And then it brings the Rust, which shield is bringing a lot of armor, is a big play in those types of rule sets. Also I play it with Wraith a lot, right? And you go up against Wraith a lot, so Wraith brings armor. And even more so is annoying because brings voided armor. So if you can take away 2 of the armors when you're going up against a Wraith, that's huge advantage. It synergizes really well with the Silver Shield Assassin, synergizes really well with the Stitch Leech, synergizes really well with the Dampier Infiltrator, Uraeus, basically any of these, sneak cards, opportunity cards, some reach cards too, right? Carnage Titan with the double strike. You have the Corsair Bunsen, I believe is the card. It's the reach monster with cleanse in life. It's a really, really, really effective card. And I get the downside, right? It's a bit slow. But, I play life a lot in reverse speed too, so it's not always a bad thing. And it opens a lot of things up, right? Getting the Silver Shield Assassin with an additional attack, that's going to be 2 extra damage because it has the double strike. Plus, it's going to eliminate some of the shield that the Assassin has to go through. And there's obvious downsides. It's slow, but it has decent health. So one of the arguments against it is probably, if you're doing a shield bearer play, there's a decent chance you might get a shield bearer play back, and there's just a lot of return fire, once you get to the higher levels. Well, the Evangelist has the health to survive a couple turns, right? So if it's going to do 4 archery, that means it's going to take 2 back, or 3 if your opponent has Amplify. So if it's 3, it's going to last 3 turns. Again, I'm playing the shield bearer, so I'm assuming this isn't getting attacked. If it's going to take back 2, then it's going to last 4 turns. So this isn't a card that's going to last you for the entirety of the game, but the additional attack, the Rust, that 3 or 4 turns could be enough for the Silver Shield Assassin, and blatantly normally is enough for my Silver Shield Assassin or my Stitch Leech to get a bunch of health, to do a ton of damage to their back line before the return fire gets rid of the Evangelist. So it plays its role. I think for 6 mana, it brings a lot to the table. These are 2 really good abilities. And every once in a while, you go up against a Pelacor Conjurer in the front, and they try to stack their back line with damage. So the Snare helps. Overall, I think it's a pretty good card. There's clear downsides, but I think it brings way more to the table than a 4.4 rating. So that's number 7. Let's move on to number 6. And number 6, actually, we are going to go all the way to the bottom of the list. The Insidious Warlock. And this isn't to say that the Insidious Warlock is a good card. Let me get that out there right away. I think the Insidious Warlock is a bad card. However, I think it is a lot better than some of these cards down here. And I think it has very, very, very clear use cases. And their use cases I take advantage of a lot. It's not something you're going to play every single round. It's not something you're going to play regardless of rule set. There's just very specific situations that I'm going to talk about where this is a fantastic card. And it's the worst card in the game by a pretty significant margin, right? We're talking about 0.4. That's big, right? A lot of these are, you have stuff that's the same 1, 2 off going to the next one. Tons at 4, ton at 4.1. So a 0.4 is pretty substantial. And I think this card is underrated. So if we come here, and it has to do with the recharge hate, right? People don't like recharge. But I think it provides a little bit of an upside in the specific cases I'm using it. So a couple of the stuff I do it with. The blind is key here. In the Fog of War rule set, where there's no sneak, there's no opportunity, I love playing the Nightmare or the Almo Cambio alongside the Astral Entity to give both of these dodge. They're really fast, they get dodge, you add on the blind. Because it's Fog of War, your opponent has to attack the first position unless they bring Scattershot. You could obviously say the same thing with the Coral Lurker, say the same thing with the Void Dragon as well. They do, Coral Lurker has the taunt, so that helps even more. But bringing the blind alongside, those really, really evasive monsters just makes them that much better. Now, there's obviously other blind monsters you can bring. However, in cases like that, the ones I just described, your opponent also knows that you have to attack the first position. So if you're going to bring, a Spirit Hoarder who has 2 attack and 2 attack and 3 health. I know it also has the triage, but there's a good chance your card in the front, your opponent, has a Magic Reflect, has Return Fire, has whatever it is. So this is where the recharge comes in handy, right? So you're not going to be taking as much damage back, and you're going to put out a ton, right? Obviously, you need to hit, but in those cases, it's really, really advantageous to get 9 damage in a turn, right? It could be the difference between getting through your opponent's Almo Cambio, assuming they bring heals and stuff, as opposed to not, right? Instead of it getting a bunch of heals. So the combination of, actually another rule set where that works really well is the keep your distance, no melee rule sets. Because the same thing, your opponent, just like you, is probably going to put Return Fire, put Magic Reflect, put all that stuff in the front line. So bringing a recharge monster is advantageous in that case. And also, again, right, if you take away melee, there's just way less option to attack the backline right away, which is, part of this card's downfall, right? Part of this card's downfall is obviously in normal rule sets, recharge isn't that great. You'd rather just have a monster attacking every turn. And also, this is a target, right? It's slow, its health is pretty low. It's in general settings, it's not that good of a card. But in instances where I can dictate where my opponent attacks, I've used this card a lot with Lily as well. So Astral and Lily have been really the two. I can put this in the back with Lily, put the Almo up front, and my opponent has to get through the Almo. So I'm letting off, every other turn, 9 magic damage, and the blind is helping the Almo stay alive. Makes it even more evasive. So there are use cases for this card. And that's really all it takes for me for it not to be, one of the worst in the game. I think you could say a similar thing about Zyvax Fool. I think there's use cases that people haven't fully explored yet. But there's a lot of cards there that are just frankly not good. And again, I'm not saying the Insidious Warlock isn't good, but I think it has clear use cases that make it so, this shouldn't be the worst card via the algorithm. Just my opinion. Okay. So let's move on to number 5. And number 5 is going to be our highest rated monster on the list. We're going to have to go, actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to flip it around here. That's how high we're getting. We have a card coming in at number 8, Bacira. And now, to be clear, Bacira just got a boost from the algorithm, but I don't even think it's enough. This card is an absolute game changer. It's one of the cards that can single-handedly win you matches. There's so many rule sets where, think about, for those who were here before the Modern Wild split, who had to go, or people who play in Wild, you're familiar with the gelatinous cube, I'm sure. There are some rule sets where if you have the gelatinous cube and your opponent doesn't, you win. And it is the same case with Bacira. The insane amount of health, the heal, some of the cards that work with it in water, right? So I just picked up the Kelp Initiate. So I can put out Bacira. Kelp Initiate didn't make it. We did the River Nymph. I honestly would have the Kelp Initiate a little higher than the River Nymph. But you can do Bacira, Kelp Initiate, Albatross. That's 9. And you're creating a double heal on a 17 health monster with a fast cleanse. So as long as your opponent is attacking the front line, it's going to be impossible to get through the Bacira. Bacira has won me so many matches in Fatigue. There's just a lot of cases where, again, if you have the Bacira, you're going to win this match. If you don't play the Bacira, you're not going to win this match. And so for me, there's very few cards that are actually like that. And that's why I think it should be even higher than an 8. It's not really that complicated of a concept, right? There's very few cards that if you have this card, you automatically win. And Bacira is one of them. Up in here wouldn't be that unreasonable to me. Like if you put it on the same around a Shield Bearer, right, an 8.7, I probably wouldn't bat an eye. Yeah, I think you could get it high 8s, I think. I would probably have it around high 8s. There's some cards up here that are going to be in my overrated list. But, if it had Taunt or something, that would, to me, make it a 10. It's just there is ways for your opponent to, attack around it in some rule sets and stuff. But I think 8 is just too low for a game-breaking card. Quickly, actually, let's look at the cube. I wonder where the cube is. Cube is at a 6.3, so I could honestly put this in there as well. I think the scavenge works really, really well with the heal. So I think that's a synergy that's probably not being accurately put in via our algorithm. We're still working on the synergy boosts, and I would say that's one of them, right? You can scavenge up a ton of health and self-heal. That's what makes the cube so great, right? The Bacira starts with more health, or has more health than the cube, but the cube can get to, you know, absurd amounts of health. I would put the cube, I mean, it's neutral, right? So that gives it a boost in our algorithm. I'd put them at about equal footing. I think the Bacira as a standalone is better, but the synergy of these two plus the neutral, you know, I guess this slot is going to be Bacira and the cube are underrated. Okay. Let's get back into it. Coming in at number 4. What is this one rated? This one is rated 4.8, so we're going back down into the 4s. And I think HL49 actually just made a video highlighting this card, which is funny because I had this list, and as I was making this list, I had his video on in the background, and I was like, oh, this is a good card. I wonder where this is rated. And I came in and saw that this rating is just too low, and that is the Djinn Inferni. Now, again, like all of these cards, there are clear downsides. I'm not saying this is a game-breaking card. The Bacira was a game-breaking card, but part of the reason why it still makes the list is because I think 8 is too low. This is at a 4.8, so this isn't that high. And I just think this is a card that can win you matches, right? If you go and watch the HL49 video, you will see the combination of Giant Killer with this 5 damage, right? You're doing some 10 damage absolute bombs to the Chaos Dragon, to the Carnage Titan. Match it up with Yasik, right? It's going to be really fast. It's going to be firing. You have the chance for random backline stuns. This is a card that can completely break your opponent. So with that said, you know, why isn't this card a, 7 or an 8? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this card shouldn't be a 4.8. You know, maybe I have it high 5s, right? If I come and look at this list a little bit. Mid to high 5s probably makes sense. Looking at some of these, there's a lot of cards here that I would play. Gorgolodon might be a good spot. Might be a little underrated. Flying Squid. Yeah, I would put it around a flying. Mid 5s, mid to high 5s, I think could make sense, in my opinion, based on looking at some of these other cards. Maybe stretch into the 6s. I don't know, but this card's underrated to me. It shouldn't be a 4.8. But the downside's clear, right? 5 magic damage, 4 health. A Magic Reflect with Amplify is going to come back, and it's going to be a 1-hit KO. Normally it would do 3. So or if your opponent has a Weaken, and you don't even need the Amplify at that point, it's going to be a 1-hit KO. So this card can eliminate itself very, very easily. It's also going to be in line for opportunity attacks. So I think this is one of the ones that I think is underrated based on my playstyle, right? I'm more likely to be comfortable going to win a match, giving myself a 60-40 chance to win, or giving myself a 50-50 chance to win, when in reality, if I played my quote-unquote best lineup, I wouldn't have a chance to win. And what I mean by that is, if I look at a certain rule set, and, I find my most optimal play, and I realize, oh, my opponent is going to have a more optimal play based on their play history or based on just cards other people have that I don't. Let me roll out Yasik. Let me go really fast. Let me bring out the Djinn Inferni. And if my cards hit the right spot, I'll win. When generally speaking, I wouldn't have a chance to win. And a Djinn Inferni is a big part of that, right? There's a lot of matches where I play the Djinn Inferni and I get smoked. It hits their Magic Reflect monster on the first turn and boom, it's gone. They bring opportunity, and their opportunity attack lands on the Inferni. A lot of things can go wrong, but a lot of things can also go right. And I think the upside that this card brings, specifically paired with Yasik, makes this underrated. The more I talk about it, the more underrated I think it is. Just remembering some of the crazy stuff I've been able to pull off with the Inferni. And then you also add this in with the Lava Launcher, who also has the stun. And you can toss out stuns with the Scatter Shot, and all of a sudden, 2 of your opponent's 6 cards can't attack for a turn. And that can be the difference between winning and losing, getting out those multiple stuns. So overall, I think this is a really, really, really high upside card. There's clear downsides, but I think the crazy upside makes so this card should not be, you know, definitely not under a 5. You know, I think you could even push to high 5s, maybe even 6s, maybe even a 6. That might be pushing it, but with my playstyle, I love it. All right. Next, we're on to number 3, and this is going to be our second highest rated card, and it's going to be our third most underrated card. And that is, what is the rating? Comes in at a 6.9. Where are we? Here it is, the Silver Shield Assassin. I hinted at this a little bit earlier, but honestly, I think you have the framework here. 7.8, 7.8, 7.7, 6.9. To me, this drop-off is unwarranted. That's my big thing, is I think this deserves a full point. I think it should be consistent across. I don't see a reason why in Diamond and Champion this gets as big of a drop. So let's take a look. And I'll tell you why I love this card. So here, Diamond and Champion. I mean, it gets a third attack. And getting an extra attack when you have a double strike sneak makes a huge difference. All right, that's 2 extra damage. You bring it with the any sort of Inspire, like the Evangelist that I talked about, or an upcoming card on my list. Hint, hint. And it gets even better, right? There's clear upside, clear synergies. But the reason why I love this card in Diamond is because she is just so powerful with shield bearer lineups. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to not have to bring that much damage, frankly. You don't have to bring that many cards that put out damage. You can focus on keeping your shield bearer alive because the Silver Shield Assassin can do it all by herself. You're talking 6 damage at base to the backline per turn with poison. And again, remember, you can't cleanse the back line. Or if you bring an Inspire, you're talking 8 damage plus a potential poison in the back line. There's so many matches where I bring, you know, Shield Bearer, Truth Speaker, I bring the, where is it? Hold on, this is gonna bother me. It's a really highly rated card. The Adelaide Brightwing. I bring another card that I'm about to talk about. I'm not gonna spoil this one because it's number 1. I bring the Vernari Crystalsmith for the heal. I bring all types of heals, all types of repairs. And it's a slow match, but they just can't eliminate the Silver Shield Assassin. Or sorry, they can't eliminate the Shield Bearer. And slowly but surely, the Silver Shield Assassin is my only real attacker. But because it does so much damage to the back line, eventually it gets through their entire team. So this is a card I think that can carry you. And I don't really understand why it dropped a full point in Diamond. I think this should be a full point higher. 8s. I think this is a card that can carry you. Now, what are the downsides? Obviously, Thorns. Even when you come up against a Shield Bearer a little bit, you know, you're expecting cleanses and stuff. But if you can get multiple attacks off on Shield Bearer, that's going to help you. So yeah, I just think the drop to 6.9 is unwarranted, and this card should be higher. Because, again, it's one of those cards that can do all of your damage for you. And I think for 7 mana, it's a very, very, very reasonable cost. Okay, time to move on to number 2. And number 2 is a fun one. So we're going to stay, this is a middle of the pack card. And a lot of this has to do with what it brings for its mana cost. So it is a 5.6. It is the Albatross. This card is so underrated. And I'm going to sum it up pretty simply. For 1 mana, you are getting one of the strongest abilities, in my opinion, which is Tank Heal. That's the whole story. Like, it's one of those things where how many times do you have 1 card and 1 mana left, and you're like, I just gotta toss something in there. Maybe I'll play a Fiend so I can get the ability. Maybe I play the Creeping Ooze so I can get a slow. Just something that can sort of marginally help me. Well, with the Albatross, that 1 mana can become a heal. That's a crazy return on 1 mana. And there's clear downsides, right? Opportunity. I mean, again, you can play this in a rule set where, Fog of War is a great time to play it. Playing it with Lily is a really great option. I do this all the time. I'll bring the Albatross alongside the Agor with Lily. Awesome, awesome, awesome combination with the Kelp Initiate for a cleanse. So think about that. Agor is obviously 15 mana. That's a lot of mana. Lily is 6. We're already talking about 21. But then you can add in the cleanse and an additional heal for only 3 more. Add in the Murdali Guardian for another 3. That's 6. So you're bringing 2 heals, a cleanse, and a repair for 6 on top of the Agor. That's 21, 27. You can get that all in a 27 mana match. The downsides of this card to me aren't even that relevant, just because you're investing 1 mana. Right? If you bring any 1 mana card, it's probably going to have low health. And if your opponent brings opportunity, or if you don't set it up to protect this card against opportunity, whether it be through the rule set itself, or a taunt, or protect, or whatever it is, who cares? But in the matches where it does work, 1 mana for a heal is insane. Think about it with the Bacira. There's just so many great times to play this card. And for its investment, I think this card is honestly... I almost put this at 1, but it just doesn't bring us up a lot to the table. I thought about this a lot. I would have this in, honestly, the 7s. Maybe even... If this was low 8, I honestly wouldn't even bat an eyelash. I just think what you're getting for the cost makes this a no-brainer to just toss in there in almost every rule set, except for no heal, right? Because if this card gets targeted, who cares? You spent 1 mana. And if it doesn't, you have a healer for 1 mana. And I mean, if we look, one of the cool things you can do on this table, let's compare it to other 1 mana cards here. And there's a lot of them. And look, it even puts it in the order, right? So I did it by mana, and it ranked the cards from highest to lowest by the mana. So if we look here, Chaos Agent is a very good card. Opponent is a very good card. To me, the Albatross is significantly better than the Creeping Ooze. The Creeping Ooze gets a big boost because it's neutral and it has a good ability, slow, right? Silver Shield Bard's a very good card. I'm taking the Albatross. Cleanse and Swiftness are great, but to me, it does not beat a heal. Flame Monkey's great. Swiftness Repair. To me, doesn't beat a heal. I have no idea why the Cutter Breeze is a 6.7. I mean, the Shatter for 1 is nice, and it's that speed, yeah, it's pretty fast. And Bloodlust. Okay, I get it. Brownie's great. I would probably have it around Brownie level good. That's probably where I would have it. Maybe even higher. I just think 1 mana for the heal. Right, like this is lined up with Agnew. To me, this is a significantly better card than Agnew. So yeah, that basically for the Albatross comes down to me. For the investment you're putting in, getting an ability like Heal makes this card unbelievable. So to me, it's significantly underrated. It's a card I've had a ton of success with. All right, so I've teased this card a bit. Let's get into, in my opinion, the most underrated card based on the algorithm rankings. It's going to come in at a 6.2, and it's going to be life, as I sort of teased a couple times. It is going to be the Angel of Light. It is a wild card. To me, it just synergizes so perfectly with life. It simultaneously does so many things. So let's think about some of the life stuff I've talked about, right? Where I bring a truth speaker, I bring, oh my goodness, I keep forgetting the name. Adelaide Brightwing, there we go. This is a 6.2. There it is. So I bring the Truth Speaker, I bring the Brightwing. It helps with all of those things, right? Truth Speaker brings a cleanse and a heal. This adds on top of the heal. The Brightwing brings a resurrect. This brings a second resurrect. So now we're talking about the Shield Bearer, and this is going to help both of the main support cards. Oh, that strategy I talked about where I bring the Silver Shield Assassin as my basically main damage dealer. This card helps out as well. Boom, here's the Inspire. This card just does so much to boost the life team. And all of these abilities are insane. Resurrect, amazing ability. Heal, I just talked about it for like 5 minutes with the Albatross. Inspire, great ability. All of these put together make this card, in my opinion, the best support card in the game. And for some reason, it's in the mid-6s. That to me doesn't make sense. When I went to go buy my wild cards, this was the top of the list card that I wanted because I had a Shield Bearer. It's only 5 mana. It's 5 mana for all of these things. Resurrect, Tank Heal, Inspire, 6.2. There's no card here that I would buy before. I still haven't hit one that I would buy before. You know, the Time Meddler. The Time Meddler is a better card than that. Any of these cards. I'm trying to find the first card I would take over Angel of Light. Haven't seen one yet. Haven't seen one. Silver Shield Assassin's very good. But no, I would still take Angel of Light, because Angel of Light is still broadly better. Again, we're talking Lord of Darkness. Nope, give me Angel of Light. Angel of Light. There's no card here. Spirit of the Forest, maybe. You know, you can maybe say this is a bit underrated too. Truth Speaker's right here at a 7.5. You know, maybe. Again, still, I'm not convinced. Bacira I would, but Bacira, again, we talked about, I think should be in the 9s. So that's what we're talking about here. Agor, Agor's very good. Agor might be a bit underrated, but I get why it fell in the top level because there's just more options to go at it. You know, now we're talking up here, mid-8s. This is at a 6.2, and I could definitely get this up into the mid-8s. So I think this is a incredibly underrated card. It does not cost a lot of mana. It brings a ton to the table, and it synergizes so well with all of the other key cards. That's what makes it so great. Its fit is so clear, right? Like that's why I bought the Kelp Initiate the other day, right? The Kelp Initiate is very properly rated, right? I didn't buy that because I thought it was under or overrated. I think if you scroll up here, what was it, an 8.2 or something? Is it higher than that? 8.5, right? To me, part of that is how clearly it fits in with the water synergy, the water strategies. For me, it's the same thing with Angel of Light, except the Angel of Light isn't getting as much love from the algorithm. So yeah, that's my 7 through 1. Again, to recap, Evangelist at number 7, Insidious Warlock at 6, Bacira at 5, Jin Inferni at 4, Silver Shield Assassin at 3, Albatross at 2, Angel of Light at 1. And again, this isn't to say that I think the algorithm's wrong. This is just my personal experience playing the game. You know, there's definitely some stuff I'm missing. You know, for one thing, right, 3 out of the 7 cards I picked were life. Is that just because I play the life team a lot and I could increase my win rate if I moved to other splinters and tried different cards? Maybe that 100% could be true. That could be some of my bias here. This isn't to say that, you know, I'm demanding that these cards, or I'm going to go in and switch the algorithm so these cards get higher. No. This was looking at the algorithm's output, which I think is super incredible and super accurate and something I've used all the time to this point for the last couple weeks, and seeing if I was doing this by myself, and the algorithm's probably smarter than I am, how would I change some of these ratings? And those were the 7 that I came up with that I thought were underrated. Do that information with whatever you want. I just thought it would be interesting to make a video on. In part 2 of the series, I'm going to talk about cards that I think are overrated based on the algorithm. There's going to be a whole wide array. I think the lowest card that I think is overrated was in the mid 5s, and the highest card is actually in the 9s. So there's one of these cards you see here that I think is incredibly overrated. We're going to talk about it. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, it would be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video, share with your friends, and come and check out SplinterGuide. We spent a lot of time into this. We think it's a really, really cool tool. Come click around, give us some feedback. We always love feedback. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will talk to you guys soon, and see you around the game.